morning, everyone, and welcome to First Parish in Concord on this beautiful winter Sunday morning. If you are in or around Concord, you know that we have lots of snow and we have some ice. It's pretty cold out there, but we've had a couple of fun days playing in the snow as well. If you are joining us from other parts of the country, your weather is what it is right there, or if you're joining us from somewhere around the world, we know that Christmas time is not always snowy and cold, not even in Concord or around Concord. I want to welcome you all to this service this morning. It is such a blessing to gather with each of you and to know that you are with us, even though we can't be physically present together. We are, in fact, a gathered congregation, and we are very much together in this way. I want to welcome all who are leading worship this morning. I want to welcome Lily Vanderzanden. She's doing tech. I want to say hi to the folks, Lily.
Good morning, everybody. Glad to be here.
And Beth Norton is here, our Director of Music Ministry.
Good morning, everyone. Great to be here with you on this morning before the solstice.
And Anderson Manuel is here, and he'll be helping us sing.
Good morning, everyone. So happy to be here with you.
And our Social Action Manager, Adrian Betancourt.
Good, happy celestial seasons.
And we heard Eric Heineke on the organ. That was a lovely prelude, Eric.
Thank you, Howard. Good morning, everyone. Lovely to be with you.
And Liz Weber is here, our Minister for Pastoral Care.
Good morning, everybody. Happy solstice time.
And the dynamic duo, Don Van Patten with Religious Exploration.
Good morning, everyone.
And the Reverend Amy Friedman, our Minister of Religious Exploration.
I have to share very briefly late breaking news because I just came from Facebook where we had our family service. Dr. Fauci has vaccinated Santa Claus personally, and so he is safe to deliver presents over Christmas. And I know some children were concerned, so I had to spread that good news, and it's so good to be with all of you.
Thank you, everybody. Our call to worship this morning honors that we are at the time of the winter solstice. This is a time of lots of holidays put together. We just finished Hanukkah. Christmas is coming up this next week. But tonight and tomorrow night are some of the longest nights of the year, the longest and the coldest, at least right here. And so this call to worship from Diane Lee Moomey is in honor of the winter solstice. Again, did the earth shift? Again, did the nights grow short and the days long? And the people of the earth were glad and celebrated, each in their own way. Let us worship together. Adrian's going to have us light our chalices together.
All right. So now is our time as you use. We can bring out our chalices or a candle or a light. In this bleak midwinter, I find it particularly hard to you because the daylight hours are so few. Why do so many people celebrate the winter solstice when it's the darkest day of the year? The days are so short that I myself had taken to doing some of my walks after dark, and I bundle up against the cold. But what a surprise, a treat to notice my neighbors with their Hanukkah menorahs in the windows, with their Christmas decorations lit up all over. They make my walk so much more cheerful. How we struggle to bring some brightness to these dark days. But the winter solstice celebrates the Earth's turning point towards the light, and going forward, daylight will just get longer and longer. And this solstice, we have an extra special treat. Tomorrow, Jupiter and Saturn are going to be so close as to form a type of a superstar-like joining, not seen so clearly since the Middle Ages, 800 years ago. Some of the giant telescopes, like at the Lowell Observatory in Arizona, are making it easier for us to see this online. So here is wishing you all the wonder, hope, and lighter hearts of a better year to come. And now let us watch the lighting of the Advent candle, and then we will recite the Advent response.
On this fourth Sunday of Advent, this time of waiting and expectation, we light a candle of hope. We light a candle of peace. We light a candle of joy. And we light a candle of love.
Okay, and our Advent response. I will light candles this season, candles of joy despite all sadness, candles of hope where despair keeps watch, candles of, someone's moving this, candles of courage for fears ever present, candles of peace for tempest-tossed days, candles of grace to ease heavy burdens, candles of love to inspire all my living, candles that will burn all the year long. Our opening song is Angels We Have Heard on High. And now, continuing on our star theme, let us hear the children's message from our own Dawn Van Patten.
So as we get started, let's take a minute just to get a little grounded. I'm going to invite you to find a comfortable position. Let your body help you decide how you're the most comfortable. And just take a few breaths. I'm going to let you do this on your own. Take 3 breaths. As we enter the season of light, let's think a little bit about light. I'm going to invite you to close your eyes And imagine the night sky. A dark, vast expanse above and all around you. Now, imagine the stars. Little points of light shimmering in the darkness. Some people say that stars are the blessings of our ancestors. And so when you need some reassurance, some support, some guidance, you can look into the darkness and take a moment to sense those points of light and feel your ancestors holding you. You also have great light inside you, and it's always there. Sometimes you just need to stop and tune in to feel it. Put your hands over your heart. Can you feel that light inside you? Remember that you are beautiful. You are loved. And you have a light to share with the world. Before you open your eyes, let's take a few more breaths. Ready? I'm going to count us out. 1, 2, and 3. Thanks.
Sorry.
Please join me in our response to that lovely message. Let us open our eyes to see what is beautiful. Let us open our minds to seek what is true. Let us open our hearts to love one another. And may we walk in peace.
Thank you, Don, and thank you, Beth, for that wonderful message. We're going to shift gears a little bit and come back to the Christmas message now. Our reading this morning comes from the Unitarian Universalist History and Heritage Society, and it regards a minister who served the Wayland Church about 150 years ago. So let us listen to this information about Reverend Edmund Sears. Reverend Edmund Sears' carol, "It Came Upon the Midnight Clear," first performed at First Parish in Wayland in 1849, achieved lasting popularity. Written during a period of personal melancholy and with news of revolution in Europe and the United States war with Mexico fresh in his mind, Sears portrayed the world as dark, full of sin and strife, and not hearing the Christmas message. He wrote, "And man at war with man hears not the love song which they bring. Oh, hush the noise, ye men of strife, and hear the angels sing." Some have criticized "It Came Upon the Midnight Clear" for its unscriptural references to prophet bards and an age of gold, and for never mentioning the Christ child. A century after the carol was written, British carol scholar Eric Routley wrote that in its original form, the hymn is little more than an ethical song extolling the worth and splendor of peace among men. Ironically, the piety and theology of Edmund Sears, author of this humanist carol, were intensely Christ-centered. The word of God may be uttered without emotion, he told his congregation, while the word Jesus opens the heart and touches the place of tears. Sears believed in a Christ fully human and fully divine, the incarnation of the divine word and the mediator who alone could bridge the awful gulf between God and humankind. Sears's was a high Christology with an Arminian leveling. God reaches down from a great distance to humanity through his Son and angels, but his peace is contingent upon a human response. So on Friday night, a bunch of us gathered for Rise Up caroling. It was so much fun. There were about 75 of us there, young and old. There were little kids there, and there were old people there, and everybody in between. And Beth and Amy did such a great job of leading us through singing Christmas carols. Now we sang some secular songs. We sang Frosty the Snowman. We sang some pagan songs. We sang Deck the Halls. And of course, we sang some of those classic Christmas carols that all of us, or many of us, grew up with. And the best thing about Christmas carols is that you just belt them out and you do not worry about the words. You do not even think about the words. I mean, we sang words on Friday night that if they had come up at a committee meeting, they would be voted down on the first round. Christmas carols are an excuse, as are any songs from different cultures, to just for a moment let our minds drift away, to feel from our hearts, to sing from our lungs, and to do it without worrying. And I would hope that this is how we can go through the Christmas season. And in fact, it's a pretty good way to go through life as well. So think about it. On Friday night, here's just an example. We sang words from Hark the Herald Angels Sing. We sang with great gusto, Christ by highest heaven adored, Christ the everlasting Lord, late in time, behold him come, offspring of the Virgin's womb. Wow, there is a lot of theology packed into that. And we Unitarian Universalists, we are often a very serious people, and we take our theology seriously. We do this in part because we know that words matter, and it matters what we say, and it matters what we do. But I would urge us a little bit to be easy on ourselves, especially in this Christmas season, and especially in this great big mixed up multicultural, multi-religious world that we live in. It is good for us to be able to bend and to sing and to go places that we might not 100% agree with, but that we like going there anyway. So oftentimes I get questions from people, how does Christianity fit into Unitarian Universalism? And I say those are our roots. Those are absolutely our roots. Both Unitarianism and Universalism were explicitly Christian religions for longer than they have been not. And the thing, though, to remember is that both Unitarians and Universalists were outsiders within Christianity. The liberal Christian message that they were espousing did not fly with the orthodoxy. And in all cases, Unitarian ministers and Universalist ministers, especially the early ones, were often ostracized by their other colleagues in towns and cities. They were not well understood, even within their Christian realm. This even extended clear up until 1961. When the Unitarians and the Universalists joined together in 1961, the story is that there were qualms on both sides, theological qualms. The Unitarians were worried that the Universalists were too Christian to join them, and the Universalists were worried that the Unitarians were not Christian enough. And so even as close as 1961, you still have this kind of figuring out within Unitarian Universalism where liberal Christianity fits. How does it come in? How do we respond to it? And of course, we know that there are plenty of UUs who also consider themselves Christians and plenty who don't as well. We were some of the folks who were at the front edge of what is known as the social gospel movement. And that came out of the late 19th century and into the first part of the 20th century. And the social gospel movement said essentially that unless people were living in a Christ-like way, unless people were trying to do the kinds of things that Jesus did in his life, they weren't really very Christian at all. There wasn't much emphasis on salvation. There wasn't much concern about whether Jesus was in heaven or how divine he was. The emphasis of the social gospel movement was to say, to be religious requires us to live in this world, to see our neighbors, to love people, to care for them, and to fight for the places that there is injustice and where there is wrong, and to bring about a more Christian, a more Christ-like world in this world. And both Unitarians and Universalists were squarely a part of that social gospel movement. And it's that social gospel movement that finds the words of Edmund Sears as one of the carols. So Edmund Sears is an interesting fellow. He was a Unitarian minister, and he served a number of churches in the area. His longest pastorates were in Wayland, though. He went to Wayland because it was a sweet little country church, and he started his ministry there and spent a number of years. But then he got ambitious. So he thought, you know, I'll move up in the ranks. So he decided that he was going to go to the very large church in Lancaster, I think, Massachusetts is how they pronounce it. So he went over to Lancaster, which now today is just a tiny, tiny church, but Edmund Sears was there. And it was a big church and it was important, but he burned himself out some. He found that he was just doing all the parts of ministry that he didn't like so much, and he wanted to have a more pastoral ministry. So he talked to the folks in Wayland, and sure enough, they took him back. He is famous for writing, "It came upon the midnight clear." And if you look at the words of this song, you can see how this pastor's heart was heavy much of the time. There was war in the United States. We just fought a war with Mexico, and we were on the brink of our own civil war. There were revolutions in Europe, and the world looked pretty bleak. And for Edmund Sears, it was important to remember way, way back, to remember those angels that had arrived and how their message had cheered those who had learned about the birth of the baby Jesus so many years ago. One interesting thing that Edmund Sears did at First Parish in Concord was that he was invited to offer a eulogy for John Brown. Now, we remember that John Brown was the radical abolitionist who believed that if you just armed the enslaved people in the South, that they would rise up and there wouldn't need to be a civil war, that they would all just be free themselves, and with very little bloodshed, it all could be over. Well, John Brown found some support in Concord and in the other towns around, and there was great sadness when he was captured and when he was hung in Charlestown, which was in Virginia, now in West Virginia. And so on the occasion of John Brown's hanging, bells rang all over the country, and in the days and weeks that passed, there were services held for John in a variety of churches, including at First Parish in Concord. Rick Fries, our own member, told me about this amazing story, how Bronson Alcott and Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau and the new minister at First Parish in Concord, Grindal Reynolds, decided to have a memorial service for John Brown at the church. And they invited Edmund Sears to give the eulogy, which he did. The church was packed that day, Rick tells me. And an interesting fact is that the church was packed, but there was also a crowd outside the church on the green, the very green that we look at. And they were burning John Brown in effigy on the church green. So this was a highly controversial service. Not everyone agreed that John Brown should be held up as a hero. But Edmund Sears delivered the eulogy that day, and part of his eulogy is credited with being the inspiration for the tune John Brown's Body, being the marching song in the Civil War. And we know, of course, as Glory, Glory, Hallelujah. That came from Edmund Sears as well. But it was deep distress in his voice that was noted that day. It was his concern for the coming strife in the United States that urged him to speak out. And there is a forgotten verse of his, "It came upon the midnight clear." Lily's going to paste it into the chat right now, but I want to read it to you because I think it fits this year beautifully. Sears wrote, "And ye beneath life's crushing load, whose forms are bending low, who toil along the climbing way with painful steps and slow, look now for glad and golden hours, come swiftly on the wing, and rest beside the weary road, and hear the angels sing." 2020 has been a weary, weary, painful year, and there are golden hours on their way. I invite you at this time of year to sing out those Christmas carols, to feel the full range of feelings that you are bound to feel at this time of year, to smile and to laugh and to shed the tears too, and to know that we Unitarian Universalists are rich in theological depth and breadth, and singing those great old Christmas carols is part of it. There's going to be a question that's going to appear on the screen now. Write just a few words in the chat, if you will. Through these difficult days, what angel message do you need to hear? Through these difficult days, what angel message do you need to hear? There are lots of things in the chat. I invite you to take a look at all of them when you get a chance. I'll go ahead and read a few of these. These are the angel messages you need to hear. Fear not. Tiny tracks of a bird in the snow. We are going to be okay. All will be well. There will be brighter days in the future. This too will end. The message of compassion, of love. We are with you. There is light. The future holds hope, patience. Just do what you can. Love is always here. Love is everywhere. Love will prevail in uniting our country. God is love. We can find common ground. We can do this together. You are guided and loved. Listen. They go on and on and on. All you need is love. All will be well. We can do this together. The message of hope. You are enough. Hope. All will be well. Spread your light. Thank you all.
Good morning, everyone. You are about to hear the choir singing for you, "Create in Me a Clean Heart." This song is based on the Bible, Psalm 51, verses 10 to 12, where David prayed after betraying his God. "Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. Cast me not away from your presence, and take not your Holy Spirit from me. Restore to me the joy of salvation and uphold me with a willing spirit." This song is a heartfelt prayer, begging for God's mercy, cleansing, and restoration. In spite of everything this year, The Gospel Ensemble continues to gather together every Sunday at 11:30. Together, we share some of our anguish of the year, and together, we try to create as best as we can something that we hope will bring you joy and peace. May this song restore faith, hope, and love, not only this holiday season, but for a better year to come. Here is the choir singing, Create in Me a Clean Heart.
Each week when we come together, we tend to our hearts and we tend to loving one another, practicing letting love flow freely. Each week you're invited to share the cares and the prayers that are on your hearts so that we can hold one another in community. This week, we are holding Eden, Peter and Candace, Rosalind and Doug, and Nicole. You can see more about what's going on for them in the chat, and I'll send out our weekly email with pastoral concerns as well. But I know that in addition to these folks, all of us are holding ourselves and one another, folks in our lives, in our hearts. And I invite you to name aloud the people who you would like to hold in community today, or to type their names into the chat now. Let's sing together, Spirit of Life. And I invite you to keep those names coming even as we sing. We hold all of these people, praying that the Spirit of life can come to them. Will you pray with me? God of love, Spirit of love in our hearts, we come grateful and sometimes overwhelmed. Our lives, our religion, our world are so complex. The complexity, it gives us the freedom to be who we are, to know to know each other more fully, to hear one another's messages as angel messages, to learn and grow and be comforted together. And so we are grateful for this complexity. We give thanks for the solstice tonight, for the depth of night with the stars glittering overhead to remind us of our ancestors, to remind us of the light and the love that we hold in our hearts. We're grateful for the turning of the earth and the lengthening of the days, which bring us hope. We give thanks for Jesus, for his teachings of justice and teachings of radical love, so much that has been passed down through our liberal Christian ancestors. We are grateful to their angel messages, grateful for the legacy that we have inherited from them. Still, life in community is not always easy, especially a community that has such complexity. Our paths are not easy when we feel confused or overwhelmed, when we sometimes come into conflict. It can be hard and yet worth it. Today, I especially lift up all in our midst who are grieving, all whose grief is fresh, all whose grief is in looking back on a life gone a year, 2 years, more years ago at an anniversary time. Especially lives that were too short. We lift up today all who are in despair, for this season can be so hard anyways, and here we are doing it in the middle of a pandemic still. And I lift up all for whom the complexity of family and identity has meant that they need to take some space away from family. And I lift up all who are exhausted, all who are doing their best to keep going. We are bound together as one community. We are bound together in a vast interconnected web. And so what touches one of us touches us all. Our hearts all together are broken, and our hearts all together are joyful. With all of the complexity, everything we have inherited and everything we carry into our future, may we have joy despite all sadness, hope where despair keeps watch, courage for fears ever present, peace for tempest-tossed days, grace to ease heavy burdens, and love to inspire all of our living all the year long. Blessed be, and amen.
For our social action candle today, I'd like to lift up our UU Advocacy Day. UUs profess our strongly held 7 principles, but we also work for our principles by visiting our elected officials at the federal and the state levels. And so when I learned at the end of November that our State Action Network was calling all the UU churches in Massachusetts to come out for a last-minute lobbying effort on December 10th, I was torn. This is so important, but it's so rushed. People so tired from the election days and caught up in the holidays. Should I even try to recruit First Parish to lobby? Well, how do you think First Parish in Concord responded? Of course, you're right. Among all of the UU churches in Massachusetts, we led the pack again, just like last April. UUs visited 30 representatives on December 10th, and our church recruited the largest number of advocates, including advocates to 4 of those elected officials, Gouveia, Stanley, Chicolo, and Hogan. Many of our own church's folks went the extra mile to meet after our Sunday service on the 6th. They graciously divided up the main speaker parts. Sue St. Croix volunteered to lead us as a master of ceremonies. Lori and Jane came over to offer their help, even though they had to work through the 10th. And so many people raised their hands to take a special part. That was so that we could best use our time during each lobby Zoom call. After December 10th, the report backs were so encouraging. I was with a group of 10 other first parishioners that visited with Tammy Gouveia, and she helped us understand some very important background on the status of our UU priority bills. Congregant Jessica Bethany was on a team that met with Representative Stanley, and they were very excited because he promised to really push for the bill to reduce the obscene cost of family phone calls to loved ones in prison. And Janet and Tony with the group that met with Representative Chicolo, she's a relatively new representative. They were very pleased that she was supportive of the UU priority bills, and they felt that some important personal relationships were building. The officials could put faces to the phone calls and emails that we make throughout the rest of the year. Marianne was disappointed that her representative, Kate Hogan, could not make herself available on the 10th, but Marianne's already in touch with others in Hogan's district in a concerted effort to reach Representative Hogan in other ways. And thank you also to Ted and Wendy, Pat and Janet, Sally and Leslie, Marcia, Fred, Marilyn, and Joyce. We should all be so proud of our church for showing up for justice.
Thank you, Adrian. I am proud of this congregation and inspired by all of the ways that we show up for justice, all of the generosity in our hearts and in our acts in the world. I want to invite you to continue to give generously. It's time for our offering now. Our offering at First Parish in Concord is always shared 50-50 between the needs of the congregation and the needs of an organization doing good work in the world. Motion sensor lights are one of the very good ways our congregation values. Oh, well, let's just move on. Anyways, live worship. I invite you to give generously, knowing that your money will be shared between the congregation and another organization. This month, we're sharing the plate with the Nature Connection. And you can give by text on our website or old-fashioned checks getting mailed to the church. I am grateful for all you do and grateful for all you give. The offering will be gratefully received now.
Thank you, Eric, for that beautiful music. It's always wonderful to hear an old tune with new ears. As we begin to close our service, I would like to invite you to participate in a whole bunch of things. The best way to keep track of all that's going on is to open and read your weekly email in FP Weekly. And depending on your device, you may have to click a button down into the text. It'll show up at the bottom of your device that says read all. Be sure and do that. Some people's computers or devices only show the first little bit of it. So if you feel like it's too short, it probably is, because there's a lot going on there, and just be sure you see the full extent of what's going on. It's also your best source for any Zoom links that you might need. You can also check us out on YouTube. The services are there. If you missed one, or if you'd like to share one with someone else, or just watch one again, just go to our YouTube page. Just go to YouTube and then type in First Parish in Concord, and it will take you right there. Remember, the family worship service is every Sunday morning at 9:30, from 9:30 to 9:50. And we are starting to really prepare in earnest for Christmas Eve. And what we would love is to have you send in a photo of yourself, you and your family, with a lit candle, just like this one. So find a candle. It doesn't have to be this one. It could be any old candle. Take a picture of yourselves, and you have until midnight tonight to get those in to Sarah Burns at sburns@firstparish.org. Speaking of candles, we would love for you to have a candle just like this one if you would like it on Christmas Eve. So I have put out a tote on the porch at First Parish, right there in front of the main front doors. And you can just go by the church anytime at your convenience and pick up these candles and have them ready for when we sing Silent Night on Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve is going to be one live service at 7 o'clock on Zoom, the same platform. Or you can also just watch it anytime that you would like after that on YouTube. Immediately after this service, if you're interested in the Worship Sharing Circle, it will begin and it will end by 11:30. It's a chance to talk about the themes of the service with a group of folks. So look for the Zoom login in the chat. And Jeff Brainerd is here from our standing committee to invite you to the online coffee hour. Jeff?
Thank you, Howard, and good morning, everyone. It's just great to be here with everyone today. Once again, we're doing our virtual coffee hour right after the service, and so I would just like to invite you to come, whether you're kind of a regular there or haven't ever been there. Would love to see you, and it'll be right after the service, and I believe a link will appear at the right time. Thank you.
Exactly. So a link for that will appear as well, and that'll wrap up by 11:30 as well. Let us now sing with great anticipation Edmund Sears' "It Came Upon the Midnight Clear." Please join and sing out.
From
Open your ears to that angel's song. Hear it wherever you go and take it in. Believe it. It is a love song just for you and for me. Believe in yourself, believe in each other, and we will make it through this hard, dark time. Remember, you are loved. Please join in the First Parish benediction, saying, go out into the world in peace, have courage, hold on to what is good, return to no person evil for evil, strengthen the faint-hearted, support the weak, help the suffering, honor all beings.
Oh,